because it submits these zero-hashed POIs, we can kind of group together POIs and compare them, and it gives us an idea of like how much divergence is happening. And what the data seems to show is that there are more and more POIs that don't match any other POIs, and obviously as zero-hashed POIs they should. So I think like one explanation for this is that there is like the subgraph fairly reliably will essentially diverge from, like if you sync it halfway on OE and then you switch to Aragon, with a high degree of reliability, you'll see some divergence. And then what's happening is like this, as indexes switch over, they're doing so at different blocks. So that divergence isn't happening, in the same part of the data for all indexers. And then obviously all the POIs that get built on top, or all of the POIs generated at a later date also diverge. So yeah, it is somewhat concerning. I think like maybe one way to come at it is just ask everybody on Aragon to resync from scratch, as you suggested, Jim, which should hopefully mean that everybody at least lands up with the same divergence. Obviously what we want is, OE and Aragon to agree, but I guess as a first step, at least just getting one canonical POI for Aragon would be a good step. Yeah.
So it's mandatory then that, if anyone's asking the question in chats in Discord, for example, should I switch to Aragon, then it needs to come with a disclaimer that you need to seriously consider resyncing from scratch across all your subgraphs.
Unfortunately, I've personally, I don't know if it's just the subgraphs that I'm picking, but most of mine, I haven't resynced and my POIs are matching quorum. And, in theory, you should be able to switch from one client to another at any point and it shouldn't matter. But yeah, as a kind of step towards trying to create just a canonical POI for Aragon and try to like narrow down the amount of divergence, I think that's good advice.
Yeah, Jazz makes a really good comment there. I don't know how possible it is to do this, but an additional sort of config field, or if PowerFire was able to actually pull the version, pull the version of the node that's being used to generate the POIs, that would be really powerful data to have in PowerFire, right? At the moment, we're all sort of making inferences, right, about, oh well, they're all matching and those aren't. We know that that person is still running OE, so the other person we see with the matching is probably, we're making inferences rather than like seeing the data. It'd be really interesting to add that tag to the POIs to see how it's changing over time.
Definitely.
I'll have to see about pinging War Follows Me about that. Okay.
Just on that, like, saying the version of graph node is relevant and interesting, obviously, but then there might be I know that some folks are running a mixture of Aragon, OE, and maybe a subgraph might be indexed at one point with one and then with the other, or at least I've heard that anecdotally. And so pinning down the exact what was doing the indexing or which node was being relied on at the point when the divergence happened might not be trivial. Is that anecdotal sort of slight complexity sort of valid, or are folks mostly sort of settled one way or the other at the moment?
Yeah, you make a very good point, Adam. Because it could be you could be interfacing with any node, right, with PowerFire, and it's not actually taking into consideration the canonical use of a client at the time that the historical POIs were generated. So maybe this is less trivial in terms of features than we might think it is. Because really what you would need, in theory, and I don't know how maybe it's just not possible to get it today, is you would need the config field per POI, right? So you would know at this time when this POI was generated, it was generated using this specific client and this version of that client.
Yeah. That doesn't solve it either, because, you know, POIs are generated like either on demand or like at some interval, but like they're generated on the data that is derived from the RPC. So you can't really narrow it down. I think, you know, Adam makes an excellent point. I think, you know, that means we should have the kind of understanding and caveat that this, you know, this data point is not intended to fully reflect, you know, the client situation or the history of that situation. It's more of just a diagnostic data point, just to try and, you know, help us understand. You know, it's just a signal. It's a lossy signal.
Yeah, I feel like you could also look at past POIs submitted by that indexer and be like, oh, these POIs, you know, from this date were submitted using OE, and then at some point it switched over to Aragon. So you could at least tell that like they switched at some point.
So basically, it's some level of information, but it's heavily caveated by a number of technical considerations.
I would say so, and as Adam said, you know, while we're there, it probably makes sense to try and collect some other environment type telemetry, like the graph node version is relevant. Even the Postgres version is relevant. So yeah, if we could collect that kind of data, even as kind of a lossy signal alongside the hard POI data, it would probably be helpful for diagnostics.
Cool. Is Ford with us today? Or anyone else who wants to talk about software in the pipeline?
I just wanted to mention just something that I noticed last week was like the issue with Aragon, and if a subgraph doesn't have like a start block defined. I was just looking at the Aragon repo, and it looks like it got merged in. I don't think it's in the latest release yet, but I think a fix for that is going to be out there soon. So just FYI.
Oh, is this the thing that Payne identified?
Yeah.
So the Aragon node doesn't have the data for the Genesis block. So when subgraph tries to call block 0 or whatever, it freaks out, something along those lines.
Yep. Yeah, I posted it in the PR in the office hours chat.
Right. Okay. Cool. All right. What else have we got here? Oh, maybe putting you on the spot here, Chris. But I don't know if it was Index or Office Hours a couple of weeks ago, or that somebody was mentioning some of the features that you've contributed to the. I think it was Ford. Some of the features that you've contributed to the agent aren't yet implemented, and I think Ford was asking. You may not have been there. You know, if they're going to be merged into the. You know, is there work to be done to merge them into the agent? I think it was around maybe claim many, allocate claim many. I think it was claim many.
Yeah, that's right. I had started an implementation, but Ford has stepped in and done it for me. So all kudos to him.
Okay, fair enough. So will this allow us to? Does this solve the problem both for the redemption of the receipts and then also the claim function 7 days later?
No, so that particular PR was about claim many. The nomenclature is quite confusing about whether or not that is rebate or fees. I think the vouchers are redeemed and the rebates are claimed. So at least by memory, I think that PR was about rebate claims. And the mechanics are that it introduces two command line args to indexer agent. The first being the minimum size of a rebate to be considered eligible for batching. And the reason you might want to set that value is like if you're going to claim a rebate for like 0.1 GRT, well, that's dumb because the ETH costs to do that are going to massively outweigh the benefits of claiming that rebate. So you should probably never claim it. So that's the first arg, just to like set your kind of level for economic viability. And then the second arg sets the size of the batch of rebates to claim. And so effectively what will happen is your indexer agent will effectively just wait until you have enough rebates to claim where each rebate individually meets the minimum size, such that the size of that kind of buffer or batch exceeds your threshold, and then it will claim all of them in one transaction. And the gas savings of that are pretty significant, particularly if the batch size is large. So yeah, I believe that is merged and will probably be in a soon to be released indexer agent. I don't believe there's anything merged in for a voucher, the kind of initial redeem for a voucher.
They kind of go hand in hand, though, right? Unless I'm missing something. You really need both in order to sort of cash in on the gas savings.
No. I mean, I would say, rebates, you're only eligible for rebates when you redeem a voucher. So obviously if you don't redeem the voucher, then like the kind of downstream gas savings are, non-existent.
So this is like where you say the nomenclature is a problem, because I keep thinking of claim as in what happens at the end of the 7-day dispute period.
So I think that is
talking about. It's called claim, but you're talking about claim many, right? Which is actually at the other end of the. If I'm correct, it's the other end. It's the initial. No.
No, so claim many is just a function on the staking contract. I think the staking contracts. No, maybe not. Anyway, it's so the claim many is just the batch version of that. So to claim, you pass in I think an allocation, maybe it is, and you claim the rebate, and claim many you just pass in a list of allocations. So it's really just a batching of rebate claiming.
Got it. But does my point not still stand that if you have 1,000 sets of vouchers that you need to claim that are worth 1 GRT each, that you're not, just with this feature being added, you're not going to claim those by setting your like a threshold, a claim threshold of 500.
Correct.
Totally not related.
Correct. Okay. So this deals with the batching of what comes after that. But you're totally right that we should address voucher redemption as well, and that that is actually higher impact because more people will be potentially claiming vouchers than they will be claiming, like rebates are downstream anyway. So
100%. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key to sort of at least getting the query rebate metrics to be, I mean, honest is maybe the wrong word, on chain, on the subgraph, but because we do get a lot of sort of questions around, why is there, no query fees in this epoch or for many epochs. I think a lot of this would solve that, and at least we would have a more realistic view of how many how many queries or how much query fees are actually being generated against each subgraph. That's the thing I'm thinking about most, to be honest. Apart from my own gas fees, of course.
But do we redeem vouchers on chain or off chain?
So my understanding is that the process looks roughly like this. So you obviously open an allocation, and then you receive queries against that allocation effectively for the subgraph. And the queries come with these receipts, which are kind of micropayments. Your indexer agent will take or indexer service will take all of those and save them into the database. And then there's some flag, forget the name, some argument indexer agent, but it will periodically take all of the receipts in your database, and it will hit an HTTPS endpoint on the gateway and effectively swap those receipts for a voucher. And then the voucher is what gets redeemed on chain afterwards. So yeah, and then later, after the 7-day query dispute window, you can then claim a rebate for that additionally.
Need more queries to test all these things.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Let me see if I can look at this office hours. I seem to be getting stuck in a loop trying to look at Gary's notes from 39, is it?
Yeah, I think I don't know if we did NodeWatch yet.
Well, we did. I mean, I talked about Open Ethereum, and then we talked about Aragon and the switchover, like people wanting to switch over. Right. I think we've covered enough of that. It's pretty boring, nerdy stuff anyway. One of the things that I was talking with Martin I think it was maybe last week, was this idea of bringing in, additional topics to office hours, so that we can maybe it will end up being something that's not recorded. So if people are less comfortable being recorded, we can, have a more sort of loose or a casual chat. Maybe if we've got time today, we'll do something like that. But before we do, so get your thinking caps on right now if you've got ideas of stuff that's tangentially graph related that you'd like to talk about in the Web3 space, and we stick them in the office hours chat right now. But before that, I think Stake Machine had something he wanted to present to the community, some new cool tools. Do you want to go ahead, Stake Machine?
Yeah, let's try. So basically, it's an idea. It was mentioned in some indexers office hours before. I don't remember who was the generator of this idea, maybe Cohen. So the main idea is just to broadcast the requests to different Ethereum clients, so we can compare the results and think of discrepancies, so we can find out how we can change, or how we can ask Aragon to re-implement some responses in case we need some data that Aragon doesn't have in its responses. So basically, it takes the currently responses as JSON in an ordered way, and it generates a lot of false positives in results because of different order of different JSON fields, and different responses contains different number of fields. And we need the work to be done is to create an algorithm that will deeply compare the JSON responses from different nodes and compare them in exact way. And we need also, it will be good if we know the field that graph node is looking for, and compare exactly this field, so we will be sure that we don't have any discrepancies in different clients. And basically, the repo that I shared consists of the stack from Grafana, Loki, and different minor containers that will help you to spin up a proxy server that will log any discrepancies that it detects on the fly. So I synced basic default that was the first one, subgraph in the testnet. So it's pulled together with this proxy, found some discrepancies and different get logs. But the main thing, mainly they are not major discrepancies, but different implementations of responses. And some of them are made because of Aragon was implemented in like an Geth way, and Open Ethereum have additional fields in its responses, like miners data and something more additional I don't know if it's related for us, so we can check all fields that we need and look only at them and not for the whole implementation of different responses. So if anybody interested in running a JSON RPC proxy in this way, just to find some maybe discrepancies on its live traffic while syncing in testnet, I'm ready to answer the questions.
This is super cool. Nice work.
Doesn't work as you expect yet.
Maybe I should try it first. No, seriously, this is cool. Can I ask a question to confirm? So is this? So I understand the RPC diffing part, but is this something that like I would run in my graph stack? And like when I configure this, do I say like, okay, this is my authoritative, like primary RPC node, let's say it's Open Ethereum, and this is my secondary, or even here are my secondary node implementations. And then I point graph node at this. Will it actually pass through the request to like an authoritative implementation and, essentially allow the graph stack to run, but on the side also replay these RPC requests against the alternative nodes and then log out any discrepancies? Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
That is very cool.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I love that you can run it in place and, like in the real workload. That's really nice.
So the best way is to run it on some of your nodes, so at least one node will have a lower latency, and because the response will take the longest latency of your longest response time. So if your second node is far away from the previous one, then it can be pretty long, to take longer time to generate the response from the proxy.
Okay, so the proxy will wait for all the nodes to answer before passing, the response back down.
Yeah, correct.
And how does it pick which response to pass on?
It will just pick the first node in upstream node of Nginx, so it will always use only the first one to generate response.
Is that where this? I'm looking at your like Nginx config there. It's like server IP node port backup. What case? So I guess if node 1 went down, it would actually start returning responses from the second node.
No, it's just for config because it needs at least one main and one backup, so it doesn't matter that it has backup for now.
Okay, so in that case, if either node went down, it just wouldn't return a response.
It will
error.
Give you timeout. Yes.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, this is really cool.
On the kind of log diffing side, I wonder if there's like a really kind of simple way to come at normalizing the responses without actually having to like parse the JSON. Or maybe the thing to do is like parse every response and like order the keys alphabetically or something like that.
There is a lot of tools for these in different languages, like JSON, Golang, and maybe C. I don't know. I didn't see any, but for Lua, I didn't find anything that ready to use. So basically, I think it will be easier to decode JSON to Lua tables, sort them out, and make this recursive. So yeah, at least we need to sort everything and find the fields that we are really need to looking for, because Open Ethereum generates a lot of fields that we won't use, and no other clients have them.
What about something like Graylog, where you can build those input output processing filters, decide exactly what it is you want to keep and what's relevant? I've only just started using it personally for syslogs, but maybe it's an option. There might be an existing filter, in fact, for I don't know, for Geth or something.
No, I'm not sure that it has such a functions for sorting out the whole JSON.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
super cool.
thanks for sharing. That's a really interesting tool.
So if anybody knows Lua, let's go and write better comparison algorithms. No,
So-
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
sure.
Can you explain the problem with the BSC and the synchronization with the subgraph and on PancakeSwap?
So I'm not. Are you talking about a problem with hosted?
Yes.
Right. This call is specifically around the decentralized network. Unless Cohen wants to come up and talk about it, because he'd be the guy who knows. We probably can't really cover that in the detail you might need. It's really up to Cohen. Cohen's our BSC expert who would know a bit about that. Here we go. Cohen's going to come up and talk. Thanks, Cohen.
Thanks.
Can you repeat the question in full? I only caught the last part.
I want some explanation about the BSC sync with the subgraph, because we have a big delay on the PancakeSwap NFT
Yes,
market.
the last weeks, the last month, all the providers are very much struggling with keeping BSC in sync.
Yeah, I think I'm asking about the 3 days ago. I think this is the real issue.
Yeah. So I lost my train of thought. So yeah, there has been a lot of problems with BSC. I know that even providers like Anchor, QuickSwap, what is the other one again? All these big boxes also have been major problems, major outages the past few weeks, and that's mostly because there is so much traffic on the BSC chain, and moreover, these archive nodes. I have to check, but I think let me run it in the background. But an archive node for BSC is getting pretty huge, which compounds to the problems. I know that, for example, Streaming Fast is also struggling to keep the nodes synced. So it's basically an ecosystem-wide problem for BSC that many people, including myself, are trying to find solutions for. But yeah, it's gonna take some time. And then, of course, there is end of this week, the Friday, there is still a hard fork. A lot of the problems come from BSC increasing the gas limit per block. That just creating a lot of extra pressure on whomever needs to keep something in sync. So yeah, it's right now not looking that great, but some people are working on solutions. Yeah, I don't know if you have specific questions, but that's sort of where we are at. Yeah, the hosted service has always been using the BSC nodes from the BSC team itself, and they sort of go out from time to time. But yeah, I don't know the details about that. I just know that it's an ongoing problem. On one hand for hosted service, and on the other hand for the wider BSC ecosystem.
Looking the last 3 days, it's looked like stuck and not something that the server is busy. We see that in the logs something that an error 502 or something. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's busy on the network or something.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't quite understand.
So I can I think where you see 502s in the logs, that's related to the node, so the BSC node responding with the 502. So that sort of comes back to the broader point Ken was making around the BSC nodes having a pretty bad time at the moment in general.
Yeah, for archive nodes, we are over 18 terabytes per piece, which needs to be on NVMe storage. So it's only going to get worse until we have a proper solution. But yeah, I know that people are working on it on a solution. But yeah, it's gonna take some time.
Yeah, and I think it's worth saying that like the onus of ensuring that the network parameters and the software running the network is, configured and designed to support a chain of that throughput really like lies on Binance's and the BSC team's shoulders. Like we can only index the data that we get out of these nodes, and at least as it stands, we just can't get the data out. So I really hope to see BSC make material investments in re-architecting the node and getting it to a place where it can support their network.
Yeah, that's one of the main criticism that I agree with. They sort of push the software out and they see the problems, and I don't see much of them investing into improving it or hiring people to improve it. We also had some issues not in the 0.5 release, but in the 2 prior releases. A lot of problems have been reported with that. So the release cycle is not enough, or maybe not at all tested, which is another problem that needs to improve where it comes to BSC. Now, on the other hand, to be fair, I'm pretty sure that if Polygon gets to the stage where BSC is right now, we would see pretty much the same issues. They also forked that get code, changed some of the parameters. So once I think by heart, I would say Polygon right now is like 5 or 6 terabytes. If they get to the point that they are also 18 terabytes, we would see the same sort of stuff happening there. And the same can be said about a lot of these other chains that also clone this and change the parameters. They sort of took the existing code base, tried to speed it up, tried to make it cheaper, but sort of didn't account for the technical implications of doing so. So in the future, I fully expect that unless things change, unless one or more of these chains really invest in development time, these other chains gonna suffer the same kind of issues, basically.
And they're all piggybacking off Geth, right? At the end of the day, so they're all taking from Geth. I mean, are they contributing upstream as well? I don't know. I don't keep an eye on that sort of stuff, but are all these teams contributing back to Geth?
I don't know. I haven't really checked. Yeah, I think my gut feeling is that they are just focused on their own chain, and sort of they merge downstream the patches and the critical security stuff. But if they contribute upstream, I wouldn't dare say. But again, I can be wrong.
There's very little upstream contribution. I mean, personally, I would call BSC out for, basically just scooping out Ethereum's tech, changing 2 parameters, and, printing a bunch of money in the process without any long-term regard for how to keep the chain and the people that use it, sustainably served. So I think it's just playing out the way that it was going to.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Chris. I think my tweets say as much, maybe with a few swear words in there as well. But my thing I'm thinking about now is this is the poster child for how you don't do it, right? And this is probably going to be the first chain that hits some sort of critical point where we simply can't support it, right? You just can't support it, and you have to make a decision whether you're going to support it or not if they don't do anything with the software. So I wonder what breaks, what fundamental break in the system occurs to, for us to hit that point. Sounds like we're pretty close to that point already, right?
I mean, a while back, one of the Get core contributors was posting on Twitter, okay, maybe we should drop archive nodes altogether. And I think it had really to do something with the sustainability of maintaining an archive node even on Ethereum chain.
Yeah.
And on these other chains, it's even worse.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about splitting the archive piece away from, like, I think Aragon are talking about that at the moment, right? So this is all about state bloat, right? At the end of the day, it's very much on the minds of all of the developers in the Ethereum space.
Yeah, the graph got a call out from Vitalik in some of the EIP 4444 discussion that's happened. So the graph is definitely on the map at the core protocol developer level as a solution to these kinds of problems. I would say that the fire hose and our approach of instrumenting nodes is a huge unlock for core protocol developers, because it would allow them to really focus on like core execution and like maintaining current state, but not have to worry about all of the historical data. I think the other thing to say is that I think the fire hose will significantly lessen the burden of running this kind of workload specifically for the graph, because the fire hose effectively decouples our ability to get data out of the node from RPC. And I think that's really where like many of these nodes fall over is, with this the parameter changes, these nodes are working incredibly hard to sync over the P2P network, execute transactions, and just keep the local state database up to date. And when the node is working on that and spending a significant amount of resource doing so, and you start throwing a huge amount of RPC at it, which is obviously exactly what we do with graph workloads or subgraph workloads, yeah, it kind of crumbles under the pressure. So like the fire hose decoupling, getting data out of the node from RPC is a great benefit. And it essentially just means that as long as the node is executing transactions and as long as the node is actually keeping in sync with the network, you don't need any RPC workload to get the data out. The data just comes out as a byproduct. We're heading in the right direction to support these chains, even if they aren't investing in the things they should be.
Mm.
Yes, I checked. Polygon is 5.6 terabyte right now, and the more they become successful, the more they will start to suffer.
Can we expect improvement when BSC upgrade, the Bruno upgrade?
The Bruno update is about burning BNB, and that's most of it. So it won't make a difference either way for the node runners or even the validators. It's just, yeah, it's a tokenomics thing basically.
It's no improvement on performance or something?
No.
Because I see something 60% on the performance or something.
Well, I haven't checked that, but the big thing about the Bruno update is the burning of BNB for every. I don't know the details. It's about burning of BNB. I don't know what kind of other goodies they did or did not put in there. I know that in the 1.1.4 release, I think it was the diff sync, and that's supposed to be a performance improvement, but it actually turns out to be worse. So yeah, I would need to dig in to see what it actually does. But it's mostly about burning BNB.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, there is something about the diff sync in there. Some bug fixes. But yeah, also keep in mind that diff sync is not compatible with Firehose. So in the Firehose version, this has been disabled.
Okay, Adam, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think the one thing. So I'm afraid I have to drop off in minutes, but I wanted to just flag that there is going to be a GraphNode release pretty shortly, which shouldn't have any sort of particularly big or significant changes. There'll be a change to the block cache, and there's going to be there's a new API version which just makes some more fields available on blocks and transactions. So just wanted to flag that here, but we'll also be communicating in the sort of normal channels and letting folks know when that's ready for indexers to use it.
Great, thanks for that. We'll keep an eye out for that one, Adam.
Yay! Can you tell us a bit more about the block cache changes?
Sure. So one of the new features that's being added is the base fee, which is was part of EIP 1559, which is essentially tracks burns some Ethereum with it, like every transaction. That's a new field in blocks, and so that's been sort of requested by subgraph developers who want to be able to essentially access that field. The challenge is that GraphNode didn't support it, so block cache is created sort of before, like in that sort of grey area, when blocks could have had that field but didn't in the block cache, could lead to some sort of issues sort of deterministically. So there's just a handling to make sure that that blocks are sort of truncated for that like for that period of time. So yeah, there'll be sort of more details in the notes, and also like in it what you'll see, but it should all sort of happen automatically on sort of startup of GraphNode.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Yeah, but as far as indexers are concerned, basically the block cache is going to be wiped on this new version so that the new blocks are guaranteed to contain the new field. But that's not something to be concerned. It's going to happen automatically, and it's going to start repopulating automatically as well.
Cool. Thanks for the clarification, Leo. So we have a few minutes left, guys. I'm sort of personally a little out of touch with what's going on in the forum. So I wonder, Oliver, if there's anything you would like to highlight. Just putting you on the spot here as usual, Oliver, but if there's anything you or anyone else particularly would like to highlight from the forums, if it's a governance piece or a discussion, anything goes for the next few minutes.
Yeah, I can get it started. We have 5 GIPs out there right now. 3 of which are currently in the process of being packaged up for council voting. So that is GIP 15, 16, and 17. 2 of those are bug fixes, and 1 is a cost efficiency improvement suggestion. We won't send it to community voting unless we hear otherwise from the community. We have only received positive feedback. There's no downside that were identified with any of those. So we already have sufficient enough community signal that we feel that we don't need to go through community voting, but straight to council voting.
Okay.
And then we have 2 more, GIP 18 and 19. 1 is subgraph change of ownership. The other one is, forgot it now.
Where's number? What stage are we at with 18? That's an important one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it now.
Hang on.
I've got it. Here we go. I'll link it.
So the subgraph change of ownership is one of them. What is the other one, Jim? I'm driving back.
I don't know. I just linked the ownership transfer one, and what are we looking at? 20 unattestable? No, that's the bug fix, isn't it?
18 and 19.
19. Can't see it. Where is it? Save gas while initializing a subgraph deployment.
That's it, right? That's the 2/3 reduction in gas costs when you deploy or publish a subgraph. So both of them curation related. They are yet to be audited, both of them, and the next audit is scheduled for early December. Both also have received positive feedback so far, so we have a little bit more time for the community to chime in. But based on the feedback we have gotten so far, those may likely go straight to council voting as well, unless we hear, opinion to the contrary. So those are the 5 ones that we currently have out there.
Cool. Thank you very much for the update. Guys, make sure and get on there. I'm do as I say, not as I do right at the moment, because I'm a little bit distant from the forums, but give yourself 15 minutes to go on there and have a read through some of the latest GIPs. I also see there's something interesting that I don't know if anyone's looked into it yet, but Dave 𝗨𝗀𝗂𝗪𝗀𝗀 has come up with this new idea of personal subgraphs. Has anyone spent any time looking at this yet? Looks quite complete, but I haven't. Probably don't have the. Might see if Dave might come on to talk about it, although it's not really indexer related, is it? It's subgraph development.
Hey, yeah, I've taken a look at that one, at least at a high level, and I think, long story short, he proposes adding some additional filters so that eth-get logs calls can be more specific to a certain wallet address, and then we could make personal subgraphs that just track all transactions to and from your wallet address. Sounds like a pretty powerful primitive to me, especially once we get to subgraph composition and you could compose across a group of personal subgraphs.
Subgraph all the things, Ford.
All the things.
Yeah, that's a cool idea, I think. Very cool idea.
Yeah, I think one thing it stems out of is like the past attempts to make generalized subgraphs, such as like an ERC20 subgraph that tracks all transfers for a set of ERC20 tokens, and that's just prohibitively expensive for most indexer setups, if not all. So it's a solution to help like cut that down to be more specific, so people can sync that balance type transfer data.
Yeah, those subgraphs are pretty meaty. They're some of the most meaty, I think, both in terms of processing and disk space, from my experience.
Yeah, I was just looking at the top ERC20 token subgraph that Adrian made. I think he deployed that in June, and it's synced up to block 10.6 million on mainnet, and it already has 250 million entities. So
yeah, crazy.
Not holding my breath on that one getting finished.
Yeah, I'm just finishing syncing a Geth node so I can try and sync some of these things without issue. Right, we are at the top of the hour, guys. Thanks everybody who's contributed today. So that's us done for Indexer Office Hours number 40. We'll see you next week. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.